That's a good opening, actually.
Yeah, it's awesome. All right, ready?
Good evening, all. Gary Gabagool here, my boy Sal, and we're coming up with a very apropos song for the Democratic Liberal Party, The Mighty Priest with Breaking the Law. How appropriate is this song?
So it's so good.
After what we witnessed last night and what's been going on this last 5 or 6 days, breaking the law is what's happening in a lot of parts of this country, in the Democratic National Committee, as well as the DOJ, the FBI, and the rest of these clowns that we call the Democratic Party in this country.
Yeah, my God. Last night was just like great full display of these evil people, and like you could just totally see it. And like, ugh, this like, how do you get, like I was trying to say last, how do you get your shoulders so shrunken in, and how do you get your head to just sit on your chest like that? It's incredible. It's an incredible posture. I don't know how the hell they could ever get to that point.
We waited to do the podcast today because we thought we had to see the State of the Union, and we think it was great timing.
Yeah.
And Sal and I, my wife, and I guess everybody out there watched. We got a lot of feedback from Facebook today and people you're talking to. But the first thing that comes to mind is, there's a lot of things, but we'll get into it. But the first thing that struck me as reflecting on this hour and 40-minute speech that President Trump made was, first off, how is there anything in his content, if you're an American, that you did not like?
Yeah,
I can't figure it out. Maybe the only complaint you could have, legitimate complaint, was it went too long, and that's fine. But as far as content goes, how could you, as an American, someone who lives here, someone who, pays their taxes, earns money, supports their family, how could you find fault with anything that was said last night?
I'm glad that you said that, because the way the media has been shaping all of our minds. Remember last night we watched it together last night, and with Angie, and every time something came up, like the liberals are going to go crazy about that, the liberals are going to go crazy about it, just because the media, I feel like now in the past year, we know why they've been doing all this crazy stuff to train you into like, oh, when he says that, this is what they're going to think. And it's like, oh man, I was slipping into it. I even said, it's like, oh, I'm slipping into their way of thinking, because I'm seeing how they're going to pick it apart, even though there's nothing wrong with it.
Right. So, and then the second thing that struck me, we're going to get into, was the complete lunacy of that room. If you understand what I'm talking about, it looked like San Andreas Fault was the middle. Here's the middle of the room. If you're standing where President Trump was, the left was the Republican and conservatives, and from that middle point right was Democrats and liberals. And here is President Trump going into, we can break it down and we're going into different sections, but telling heroic stories of people that just went above and beyond as Americans, saving people's lives.
Yeah.
And when you look to the right, you got this half-hearted applause. You barely heard anything. Then the thing that I found to be the most shocking was President Trump went into all of these U.S. Bureau of Labor statistics about the economy, about how great it's doing. And the thing that shocked me the most was when he went into the lowest ever in our history of unemployment for blacks and Hispanics, and the Democrats, the Black Caucus, and the liberals sat on their hands with frowns on their faces.
Because they're so upset that none of the funding for all those programs, like all their food stamps and social welfare programs, they all got taken away. So those people, they can't be unemployed no more. They gotta work, or you're gonna die.
The part that I found to be interesting is, I think if you were, when you watch that, a cartoon, when you see the bubble, the thought bubble in their head, the thing that if the thought bubble could have been there, the Democrats, specifically Nancy Pelosi, Schumer, Bernie, the first thing that would have popped up would have been, boop, my God, we're losing our voting base. For 60 years, we had these basic clones, these robots in the inner city, poor communities, minorities, who just voted Democrat because that's what they were told to do. And now these people are out getting jobs. They're flourishing. They're making more money than ever. And they're going to see that we've been fraudulent. We've been hyping them. We've been playing them all these years since the mid-'60s. Now they're realizing that all we have been to them was false prophets. Yeah. The wizard behind the screen. When you pull the curtain back, you're not getting a wizard, you're getting a fucking bum. And that's what they get. And I think that's what they're saying is, holy shit, we are going to lose our voting base now.
And without a doubt, their whole voting base is shot. Who was your favorite of the military, the civilians, the people like they honor? What was your favorite moment?
There was a lot of good moments, a lot. We can get into the MS-13. That the victims of that was very sad.
That was sad.
The one gentleman I thought was great because he was crying when they're talking about his daughter, but when he heard other stories, he was like congratulating people.
The JB Smooth looking
guy.
He was
great. And when the one gentleman who saved like all these lives, I think he went up and high-fived
the military guy.
and he said, "You're the man."
That story got me a little teary-eyed. I was like, "Whoa,
yeah,
saving that dude's life for 2.5 hours, breathing air into him."
Correct. That was a great story.
Wow. I thought the Korean guy for me, I thought that was crazy.
That was a
and
great
he was holding
story.
up the crutches. That was powerful.
I mean, very. And then I felt bad, even though I thought I don't know the whole story, but we heard it. But I thought Oscar Warbler's parents, I felt bad for them. They lost their son. Otto Warbler. Warmbier. I felt bad. I messed up this.
That's all right.
I'm sorry, I messed up the guy's name. But I felt bad for his mom and dad. And what I did like was the JB Smooth guy. He like
that's how we kind of categorized.
Yeah, he did look like him.
He looked just like him.
He did. When they saw that, they kind of had a moment where they both looked at each other and they both know what it was like to lose a child, and they had this moment. And they both were crying for each other, and I thought that was really good. The guy CJ Martinez, the guy who captured all these MS-13, threatened his life. There was just so many good.
Great
listen,
story.
I gotta say, Steve Scalise, and here's what struck me about Steve Scalise. Here's a man who was shot nearly to death.
Yeah.
Came back and went back to work in 3 months. He looked better than 99% of the men in the Democratic Party. Yeah. I mean, the guy was near death. And you could just tell, like, when this has happened to me, I wasn't shot, obviously, but I had other issues. But when you go through what that man has gone through, you could see he had appreciation for life. He was thankful.
Jubilation.
The what you could see in his eyes, and he looks just like a really good guy.
Yeah, he looks like a normal dude. Like
a normal dude.
He was practicing for a softball game. I mean, come on.
Correct.
You almost die over it. It's insane.
But
you're right though. Because looking at like Pelosi playing with her dentures, and then Bernie Sanders looked like death.
Bernie Sanders looked bad.
Like death. And Schumer, I never saw shoulders so small on a man when I saw Chuck Schumer. I was like, how could that possibly be? The dude must not even lift up a carton of milk. I mean, but he obviously is getting catered everything.
Right. Well, everything. If you look at these men in the Democratic Party, they look, and I'm sorry, this is going to sound terrible, they look like their pictures should all be for pedophilia posters. The ex-vice president candidate, yes, the ex-vice president candidate, if you saw him, he looked like a raving lunatic. Hillary, the guy from Virginia, Hillary's ex-vice president candidate. He looked like a complete nut. Schumer looks like a maniac. Bernie just looks like all the life has drained out of him. We could just go on and on about these people, how bad they look. Gutierrez,
when they were saying America, like USA, he left.
Yeah. You know what's funny? I said when the minute President Trump's speech was over, they scattered like a welfare recipient running to their mailbox on the first of the month. They just ran let's get up. Like they just took off. And I was laughing about how childish, how infantile, how juvenile the Democratic Party looks. And I don't know if you guys saw this, but I recommend you look at it. During one of the speeches of one of the highlights of Donald Trump, a Democratic candidate, and I don't know her name, got up and clapped. Nancy Pelosi got up and started screaming at her, telling her to sit down, sit down. Think about that, people. Here's a woman who thinks she's talking to like a kindergartner and like telling them to sit down and behave. Like you are basically celebrating the economic successes of our country, of our people. And the Democratic Party just showed their true anti-American hating colors by not even wanting to celebrate in the successes of our nation. It's pathetic. It's pathetic.
It really is. I couldn't stand watch. And every time they pan to them, all the Dems, I was like, these people just, they can't, like, they thought that they were going to have this path to whatever they wanted. And now they have nothing, and they can't figure out how to get what they want. Right. It's like I wish I would have thought of this analogy before. It's like an infantile child not getting like their cookies.
Exactly.
It's just like they can't figure out how to get their cookies by just being nice,
right,
and playing the game,
right,
a little bit. I'm not even saying go, play the game as hard as you can. Just be in the game. Just be nice. Be receptive, and you'll get your freaking cookies.
Well, think about this. I try to always break this down into a most common theme. For example, whatever you may do for your job, whatever Sal does, whatever you do for your job, you may not like your boss. You may not like the CEO of the company. However, if you found out that you were going to get a lot more money in your paycheck, and listen, money is an object. This piece of green is just a thing. But what it does is, it's not what's important. It's what it can do for you, what it can do for your family, your children, your grandkids, whatever the case may be. How is it that you cannot that your venom and your ideology can be so hateful towards that president of that company for whatever reason that you can't even be happy? Because here's my theory, people. All you liberals and Democrats that hate Trump, that have seen your 401k go through the roof, because I'll tell you right now, my 401k made more money this month than it made in the 8 years under Obama. It's up 42%. You could see a tangible number. It used to be X. Now it's X. There's a number. It's a huge gain. In the last year, it's gained ridiculous amounts.
Like you said, he put $8 trillion into the stock
market. Right. And if you hate him so much, don't be a hypocrite. Send all that money back you made if you work. Yeah. The money that you're going to be getting back every month in your or every biweekly paycheck, send it back to the refugees you proclaim don't care. Don't bring the money back into your pocket, but you won't, because you know why? Like we talk about, you're nothing but foolish, silly hypocrites that need to be bitch slapped. And quite frankly, people who are normal thinkers, like the people watching this Red podcast number 42, people like Sal, people like my friends, people I talk on Facebook, we laugh at you. We're embarrassed for you. Yeah. Literally, I'm embarrassed for you the way a mother may be embarrassed, or a father may be embarrassed when a child acts silly or does something so outlandish that you're like, oh my God, this is my offspring. I'm embarrassed that you're part of my race, the human race.
It's like, here's a good analogy. It's like when your kid starts bragging. These are Democrat people. Your kid starts bragging.
Right.
You should tell them to stop.
Correct.
Because that stops you from being able to brag about them. Right. Other people being able to brag about. Because that's self-narcissism. You can't display that. Dems don't understand that. All they do is brag and this and that and name call and point fingers and this and that. When they shouldn't. They should let the people do that. They're actual citizens, but they force it upon them. Not the people who support them.
Right.
They force it upon them to be like that instead of just letting it happen naturally. That's why it's a fake cause. Everyone sees the farce and it's nonsense, but they don't stop.
No.
It's
like they can't help it.
It's this fringe left-wing outlier group that has control of the media. It's bizarre. It's bizarre. So they push all these things like it's happening everywhere when it's only happening to such a small minority of people.
Well, it's ridiculous. I read it. I read a very interesting article today in the Wall Street Journal, and what it said is the media, the title of the article was something, what the media doesn't want you to know. And what they said is that there's a faction of Democrats and Republicans in Congress that want to work with each other. And the problem is, and they specifically said there's very few Republicans that think this, very few, less than a handful. But they said a large majority of the Democratic Party does not want to work with the Republicans, and they don't want to work at all. They don't want to work at all. They just want to stick to their ideas. They don't want to do money. They don't want to do what's best for the country.
We're going to take the money from the rich and give it to the blacks. Okay.
Right. But what? So they had these two. They had these two senators, one from New York and one from New Jersey. Believe it or not, One was a Republican and one was a Democrat. And one was the guy from Democrat was from New Jersey. The Republican was from New York, upstate New York. He was from like Albany area, Ithaca. And he said, listen, there's a lot of us that want to work together. We actually like each other. We admire each other. And we actually think, we both think, and a lot of people think that the reform that President Trump put together for immigration, and we'll talk about it later, was incredibly fair.
Yeah.
And I thought, wait a second, maybe, just maybe there's a glimmer of hope that we don't know about because we're never told it. We don't have the inner workings of what's happening in the Senate and the Congress. But I didn't even think this existed. So seeing this today, and they call themselves the Reform Group. That's their title. They self-administer a name. If that's the case, I actually have a little bit an inkling of some type of golden ring we can grab onto that maybe we can right this ship that's been so wrong, because all we see is the media. All we see is Hollywood. All we see is these radical left-wing liberals acting like nuts, not knowing that maybe there is a part of this party that there are some normal thinking Democrats out there. And I'll give you an example, like Joe Manchin. Joe Manchin out of West Virginia, he doesn't give a shit about Nancy Pelosi. He cares about his people. And that's the kind of guy I want to deal with. When he mentioned clean coal, President Trump, and that they're not regulating it as much anymore, and that they're giving jobs back to the people, a big portion of his constituents in West Virginia want it. He stood up and clapped. He didn't care if he got yelled at because he's a man and he's someone that I can respect. There used to be a guy out of Ohio named Evan Bayh. Evan Bayh was one of the most moderate Democrats that I could think of. And he actually wasn't forced to step down. He stepped down. And when we asked why, he was out of Indiana. And when we asked why Evan Bayh stepped down, you know what he said? I had to step down because this party has become so radical that I can't even deal with them anymore. He's like, I see myself more as a moderate right than a Democrat anymore. The Democratic Party I know and love is dead.
I believe it.
Yeah,
it's been dead now.
And that's a Democrat
talking. It's been dead now for 2 years.
And then I think
3 years.
And funny, Sal said 2-3 years. Evan Bayh quit like 5 years ago because he saw it coming down the pike, and he said, I don't know this party anymore.
Well, they're not liberals anymore. It's like we were talking before the show started. Liberalism back in the day, 60s, it was all about free speech and not conforming to this, not doing that. And it's complete opposite now.
Complete opposite.
It's the complete opposite.
Right? I mean, if you try, it's funny. Today I'm at the coffee shop. I get there early because I had a lot of work to do. I had an admin day. And I'm there, and I sit down, and this man sits next to me. Never saw him in my life before. Very friendly, introduces himself, tells me his name, and tells me that he used to be a producer for CBS News back in the day. He told me he was 62. Now he has his own consulting company. He proceeds to start bashing on Trump. So it was interesting. I decided to take a different tact to this debate. Instead of going at it with him, I said to him, well, what is it that you don't like about Trump? And he goes, oh, the way he's tearing down the news, he's delegitimizing the news organizations. And I said, well, kind of, isn't that what they did to themselves? And he goes, what do you mean? I go, well, I think you're thinking about the news organizations when you grew up, Walter Cronkite and those guys. He goes, yeah, Walter Cronkite, I worked with him for a short time before he retired. I said, well, I go, today's news doesn't lie. He goes, well, I go, well, what about this? What about this? What about this? I go, that's not false. And he goes, well, Trump just, I go, well, Trump says it's false because it is false. I go, can you tell me something from Russia collusion that's been proven right? Well, what about, I go, no, I go, you're wrong. I said, and he didn't know what to say.
And you got to think about the media like this. All right, everyone. When was the last time you heard anything in the media about BLM or Antifa? Think about it, for real. When was the last time you heard anything? About 2.5 months ago.
You know why, right?
Because it didn't work.
Correct.
It didn't work. They had to move on a different narrative.
That's all they do. I mean, this podcast, this is number 42. Like
we've been calling this shit around for months in advance.
If you go back and look at our podcast, the liberals had the only purveying narrative that they've held on for any amount of time has been the Russia narrative. And that's been proven false time and time again. But if we go back 42 podcasts ago, which is less than a year, but if we go back, you can almost every podcast or every second podcast, the liberals had a completely different narrative. They stuck to it. It didn't last. They went to something else, and it just kept going on and on and on. And I will guarantee you, excuse me, next week or 2 weeks from now, Sal and I'll be talking. They'll have another narrative, completely different. Transgender.
They're going to run out of narratives. So
that's the problem. And that's why I think they're holding on so strongly to the Russia thing, because it's the only thing that's keeping legs in the media, because it can be ongoing because it's very difficult to prove, and they haven't been able to.
Yeah, no, they can't.
And they're not going to.
None of their stuff they can prove ever. It's like their favorite words are could and may.
Right.
I've never seen so many news articles like actual. They're not news. They're opinions.
Right.
Everything's an opinion column now.
Well,
it could.
Well,
it may happen.
They say, well,
it might.
And for you liberals, or even some conservatives, if you don't know this, President Trump turned over 1.4 million pages to Mueller, which is basically every single discussion he had since he's been in there, and they can't prove it. They still can't prove it. Yeah. And any Russian stuff that happened to anybody who used to work with him or got fired has nothing to do with Russia. They got in trouble for something completely different. So the narrative has been completely false, 100%.
I was looking at lobbying numbers for the 2017. Who spent the most lobbying? Who do you think spent the most?
You mean Republicans or Democrats?
Well, corporations. Who spent the most lobbying?
Wall Street guys like Goldman Sachs.
Google spent the most.
Google did. Wow.
Google spent the most.
How much?
18 mil.
Okay.
Soros spent second most, 16.2. And that's just his open society organization.
Yep.
They spent 16.2 million in lobbying last year.
Wow.
Facebook 11.5 million. Amazon 12.8 million.
Damn.
Yep.
These social media organizations are taking over Wall Street.
Microsoft 8.5 million. And
Damn.
Apple 7 million.
Wall Street guys weren't even in there.
They probably were. This was just corporations.
Oh,
so
okay.
Tech corporations.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Yeah.
No, it's fine. And it was like tech corporations and private donations from societies.
Did they say what they were they lobbying DNC?
They were trying to push their shit.
Yep. Yeah, that's what they do.
They were trying to push all of their stuff. Like all I saw was all those numbers, and I was like, this is how deep it goes. Like,
yeah.
I know like the lobbying thing got changed a while ago. I'm sure they could have spent a lot more money a few years back. Or was that just last year Trump changed the law? I know he changed the law on lobbying and how much you can actually spend in the super PACs and all that crap you put into it. So
I'm wondering if this and this might be something we need to research. I'm wondering if that covers tech companies. They might not fall in this. Yeah. He might be just about Wall Street guys or like industry guys, like people who affect the government. Yeah. And I don't think they think that these guys do.
I don't think so. Yeah.
Wow. So I didn't know that.
I was just looking at the numbers like, wow. I was like, now you see who's really trying to gain influence in this country right now.
Right. Well, that's a great indicator.
Yeah.
I was going to go into a little bit, and we're going to talk about some of the highlights.
Yeah.
There's a lot of them, but and
highlights of last night.
Yeah, and this is where the Democrats and now let's think about this, people. Let's find out, and we're going to discuss it. But how could you, as an American citizen, find fault or piss on the parade of these numbers? I checked it out. I fact-checked them. These statistics are correct. But just in 11 months, President Trump create 2.4 million new jobs, $200,000 in manufacturing. Did the liberals get up and clap?
200,000 jobs.
Yeah, 200,000. Did the liberals get up and clap? They did not. Now, people, think about this. What is one of the main directives of any president or a leader of this country? To stabilize or grow the economy and to create jobs. I don't think there's nothing else there's other things, but there's really nothing else that the president's going to be measured by, especially coming off such a shitty economy from the Obama years and George W.'s last 4. They didn't clap. They had that lemon look, that sourpuss face on. They all did when he did that.
They don't want people to have money. They want to have the money.
Right.
That's why.
Yeah. And I think the voting base, but we mentioned the Black and Hispanic unemployment rate. Sal mentioned the $8 trillion $8 trillion, people, added to the economy from the stock market. And I don't even have a lot of money in the stock market. I saw how much it went up. So you know that this is legit. This is legit.
Yeah, the Home Depot co-founder, did you see his quote?
He's great.
He was great. He goes, "Stupid Dems need to use your brains." He said, how do you not see tax reform as working?
Right. I mean, and then he said something, wages are rising up in every single class of people, which is, listen, wages rise, we make more money, we pay more taxes, which are good taxes. Everybody wants to make more money. That's why you work.
Exactly.
Secondarily, he said this, which I wasn't aware of until last night, that up to every $24,000 that any American makes is tax free.
Married couples,
tax free. That's
huge.
Yeah. Huge.
Considering most,
right.
Most, a lot of families don't, even if they're married, they don't make that much money
Correct.
together.
So that's great. You're getting all your money back. Also, this is something I found to be funny. None of the Democrats or liberals stood up and clapped. He doubled the child tax credit. So now that tells me that Democrats, you're not for children, you're not for working mothers.
No, they're for abusing children.
Exactly. They're for pedophiles.
Yeah.
That's what they're for.
And using single mothers. That's what they're for. Yeah.
And then he went into some examples of what we talked about this last podcast. But Apple investing $350 billion. Exxon, he said Exxon just committed to $50 billion in the country. This is huge amounts of money.
Yeah, and people are like, "What does that?" Well, you got to think, all these corporations and all these businesses weren't in this country. So guess what they were not doing? Paying taxes.
Correct.
Now they're
hiring people.
Now, but you cut the taxes, so they're not going to be. That's just the mere fact that they come back and pay taxes is huge. And huge.
These two corporations we just mentioned, Apple and Exxon.
That's like 45, 50 billion.
Well, they're investing. They're going to invest $400 billion. Yeah. Now, think about this, people. He cut the tax rate. Tell me if these two companies never came back. What's 35% of zero?
Exactly.
What's 21% of $400 billion?
Yeah.
There you go.
That's how much money we just made by bringing them back.
It's a no-brainer. But the Democrats don't want to have success financially, economically. No. Also, one thing, and it was funny, we were watching this. The first thing when he tweaked Obama, we mentioned the word Obamacare, Sal and I just looked at each other and started laughing. The Dems were like, they went like crazy because he didn't say Affordable Care Act. He said Obamacare is a disaster.
Obama did bring it on himself. Now,
yes.
I actually, my boss was telling me about this. I was like, did you notice that part where he said Affordable Care Act? He's like, even Obama didn't want to call it Obamacare, but after a while they said you have to call it that because that's going to be your legacy.
Yes. And so he just followed what.
Man, just eating dirt. Obama.
Obama's legacy was shit. And it's funny.
It's not there no more.
No, it's gone. It's shit. Another thing and here's another part where President Trump just stuck it up the ass to the Democrats. Speaking of Obamacare, what was the first thing when President Trump came in? You heard it ad nauseum, ridiculous amounts of times from the media and Democrats. What's the first thing they said about President Trump's so-called health plan? It's not gonna cover pre-existing conditions. Well, guess what he said last night? We're gonna terminally ill patients, which is as pre-existing as it gets. We are going to open up pharmaceuticals to these patients, and he's going to call it right to try.
Right to try.
Experimental life-saving drugs for people who are terminally ill. And the Democrats did not get up and clap.
It's amazing. It's amazing. How do you not clap for that? Because I know people are a little up in arms. They don't know what the deal is about stem cells. But I was telling Gary, they use the wrong kind of stem cells in this country. They don't approve the right kind. Like in Panama, they use the ones that actually can turn into things. That like stem cells they can pump into you now might turn into cancer. It could do all kinds of crap. They have no idea. They actually have stem cells where you could kind of program them into being what they want them to be. The stuff that you were promised 10 years ago when you heard about stem cells. Right. They actually have them, but not in this country.
Right.
Not yet.
Not yet. The second thing. What's another thing that the Democrats say that President Trump once again proved them wrong? Oh, President Trump, he's for the pharmaceutical companies. He used all their lobbyists. He's trying to raise prices. What did he do yesterday? He gave his word. One of his top commitments is to lower pharmaceutical costs. Democrats are wrong again. Now, mostly 99% of us, or are on some type of medicine during the course of a year. How is it that nope, the Dems didn't clap on that either? Lowering costs. They sat on their hands. Another thing they were wrong.
Lowering costs takes money out of their pocket.
Correct. The third strike against the Democrats.
Animals.
The third strike against the Democrats. What else did they say during these women's marches? During all these Hollywood bullshit things. Women's rights are being frowned upon. So what did President Trump do? He threw a Nolan Ryan fastball 105 miles an hour down the pipe that the Democrats whiffed on again. Paid family leave for a mother having a child. I heard that's a third whiff. I mean, sit down, Democrats. You can't hit for shit. I mean, he just continuously proves them wrong again and again and again. It's almost become not even fun anymore because they're just wrong all the time. He's brilliant.
Yeah, it's almost like you're dealing. You don't take this wrong way. It's like you're dealing with a special person, like a retarded person.
Right.
It's like they just don't learn. They don't learn that this is the right way to go because they see it. They say, "Oh yeah, look, there's money over there. There's money over here. I have money."
Right.
I don't want it. I don't want them to have it. It's just like, what is your problem? How slow are you?
Well, I thought about this. If I was, say, for example, if Gary Gabagool was a Democrat, which God forbid would never happen, but say he was. If I went back into a meeting after this thing last night, you know what I would say to my fellow Democrats? If you can't beat them, join them. And they'll say, what do you mean? Say, listen, this guy is obviously getting a groundswell of support. Numbers don't lie. So let's do this. Let's basically kind of get on board with what he's planning. And let's say how we can do certain things, not to criticize, but to improve maybe on what he's done.
Yeah.
But they can't do it because their ideology is so wingnut, batshit crazy that they don't even want to give credit when they know it belongs. They don't even want to do it.
I know, it's so sad. It's they're eating themselves. It's so sad. It's so sad.
It's like a flesh-eating disease, a brain-eating disease. It's nuts.
Well, it's so sad. I feel bad for the people that aren't, actual, congressmen, the people that are actually just liberal people who support them. These people are taking you for a ride.
They've been.
And like you're just along, and you're just gonna lose and lose. I mean, what's that gonna do to your mental psyche?
I have the most difficult time. And believe me, people, we talk about, everyone watching this, we talk about this on a daily basis, that liberalism to me in today's world is no different than a mental disorder. Like things that people get put in straitjackets for, or get back in the day, used to have their brain shocked with electric waves. That's where you are at this point with liberals.
Just speaking to that point, I'm not sure how much more you have to go on this. Liberals, what do they want? Socialism.
Yeah,
they want the socialism. And then I was listening to our boy Jordan Peterson this week on Joe Rogan's podcast, and he brought up this point. And he says, "How much tyranny would you have to impose on a society to get to the point of socialism? So much tyranny to the point that socialism would never possibly exist.
It can't.
It's impossible to even get to that point
because you have to kill all these people.
There has never and people are like, well, they were social. Like, what was it, Lenin?
Yep.
Early the estimates they don't know Mao too. We're talking
hundreds of millions.
We're talking maybe 200 million dead in those places where socialism, air quotes, was. And now we see what happened in Venezuela.
Yep.
Venezuela, the doctors are ordered that on death certificates, they're not allowed to put starvation. They're not allowed to put died by starvation.
Yep.
That's how sick it is politically.
Well, it's funny when you hear people say, we need socialism or whatever.
It can never happen.
It can't happen. But I just read, and speaking to South's point, I just read that I guess Venezuela has this semi-famous soccer player who obviously is not playing now. But he's like 34 years old. I think back in the day before Venezuela, 10, 15 years ago, he was a up-and-coming star in Venezuelan soccer. He just died because you couldn't get an antibiotic from basically a nominal disease that any of us would be fine. If any of us got this disease today, we go to a doctor or a center, we get an antibiotic, and we go home in 2 days, we're fine. This guy died. Yeah. And he was in good shape, or relatively good shape compared to what he would. But this is the kind of stuff, like, this is what you want, people. Like, I don't even think they know what they're talking about because obviously,
No,
if they did their homework, if they did their history and found out about Mao or Lenin, and they're even those two individuals were even worse than Hitler.
Like just think about the amount of tyranny you impose on people, the amount of rights you got to take away from them and give to and just it's impossible to ever get like that. It's not like Bernie Sanders, let's take the money from the rich and give it all to the black people. Hey, how you doing?
He's just a jerk off.
He's an asshole.
And then another thing that they were proven to be anti-American haters was he mentioned that in countries in the Middle East that he's basically almost eliminated ISIS. Yeah. Now think about this, people. He's eliminated groups of terrorists, killing people, blowing people up, raping women, throwing gays off buildings, all these things that normal thinking people are against. They didn't clap for that. They did not clap. And then they found fault with that he decided, and I love this, and I don't know, anybody want to debate me on this one? I'll debate you all day long. He decided to stop giving money to countries that hate us and oppose us on everything. What the hell is wrong with that? What is wrong with that?
What is wrong with that? What did those countries do for us? What do they do?
So I think they said last year we gave $20 billion to countries that oppose us and hated us on everything. Wait a second. Let me ask you a question, people. And this is for you.
And terrorist organizations.
Right,
like
terrorist
Hamas
organizations.
And all
exactly.
them friggin' places.
But are you going to befriend and give money to someone who treats you like shit, who brings negativity to your life, who does nothing but invoke horror on your life? No, you're going to stay the fuck away from them. That's normal human being. That's psychiatry 101. So you want to pay them off like you're being played?
Just think about this. Even like say you're best friends with a guy.
Yep.
You make $2,000 more a month than he does.
Yep.
You're not going to give that guy money just because. Like you're just not going to do it. Even if it's someone you love, you don't do it.
And what about if he treats you like shit?
Like there's a give and take here. Like
right.
This is what people. Let's just give them money. Maybe they won't hate us. Like what the fuck?
Well, no. Well, the bad part is this what's funny. They will not. They we talk about this, and it's like beating a dead horse every week with these liberals. They love to talk. That's what they're best at. They don't give solutions. They don't give plans. They don't execute anything that's going to come to fruition. They just love to talk. They have diarrhea of the mouth. They just spew out garbage. All these idealistic plans that they have no idea because they don't even want to do them themselves. So if you don't want to do it yourself, why are you telling all of us to do it?
Yeah, it's just like all those assholes who went to Davos.
Yes.
On their private planes, talking about climate change. It's just like
so hypocritical.
Oh,
it's just so hypocritical.
And people, that's the funny part is that they're so stupid. Some people, they buy into it. Oh, we gotta change this. We're gonna be underwater.
It's just funny.
What about the people who you're giving money to who just fly all around the world, burning all kinds of jet fuel? Like,
right.
You don't think about that?
And they don't want you to drive an SUV, but they're gonna go on a private jet to go because they're more important than you or me.
Yeah, that's
yeah.
what.
Yeah,
and like I'm saying, do those liberal people? Do they actually think that? Well, they're more important than me, so
they might. I don't.
It's okay.
I would love.
They're way more important.
I would love to sit down. I never asked a liberal that question, but I would love to say to a liberal, "Do you think Hillary Clinton, not me,
do you think she's better than you?
Do you think she's better than you? Do you think she's more valuable to this world than you are?" And I would love to see what they say.
If you say yes, you're fucking moron.
I would think they might say yes. They might.
There's no one in this world that's more important than you.
Correct.
Nobody.
It doesn't matter, but
you always come first. That is how it goes.
Yep. Well, there's another.
You, your job, your mother, and then you care about something else.
Right. Another thing he said, which I know tweaked them, and I heard like an uproar, is when he said Americans dream too. I thought it was so simple. Yeah, it was just like putting the dagger in and twisting it a little bit. It was great. I love that part when he said it, and they got all bent out of shape on that. And another thing that he talked about, and I can't figure out why Democrats were opposed to this. And to be honest with you, I thought it was brilliant, and I think it has to be done. I mean, we obviously don't want DACA. We don't, but at some point, you have to negotiate. Negotiation is a give and take. He admitted this. So his 4 pillars of immigration reform, when he called it path to citizenship, and he said that he would fast track 1.8 million people who are here. Now,
sounds pretty generous.
Yeah, do you want to hear this? No, I didn't want to hear it, but now I get it because you need this. This is life. If you are involved in business or negotiations or in any situation, even with your child, something as simple as your child wants one thing and you want another, and this is a 5-year-old, you have to have a little give and take. It's the American way. It's the way things are done. Now, can you be a dictator and say, hey, kid, you're my son, you're my daughter, you're getting nothing? Yeah, you could do that from time to time. You can't do that all the time because you'll eventually...
From time to time, it's necessary.
It's necessary. But eventually, your desired outcome will not occur because the kid knows that I know what happened to me as a kid. I know when my parents didn't negotiate with me and they slammed me hard, right? Eventually, I just shut down. I'm like, why am I even going to waste my time? I don't get anything anyway from it. So I'm just going to do what I need to do. And I'm going to probably lie to them until I get caught. Because why am I going to be honest? I'm being honest. I'm getting slammed for it. There's no negotiation here. So when he said he was going to bring 1.8 million, that was 3 times more than Obama did. And no one clapped for that. And that's exactly what they wanted. And they still didn't clap. I mean, the fully securing the border, the wall, that's a 2 thumbs up. People tell me that's not effective are full of shit. It's incredibly effective.
It's just a symbol, man.
Yeah.
It's a damn symbol of what it's to be.
And,
duties?
Yep. And then the end of the visa lottery program, I loved for giving visas out. And in addition, I love this word he used. He said, we want to have merit-based immigration. And he mentioned specifically a plan, which Obama never had. And he said, we want people who love this country, want to assimilate, want to speak English as their first language.
We don't want enemies here.
Correct.
Yes.
And I thought that was phenomenal. And the last thing, which I'm a huge believer in, is the end of chain migration, because they found that many of these terrorist attacks in this country come from specifically chain migration. So I don't understand how these people could think anything was bad with that. I don't get it. But they did. They didn't clap. They didn't do anything. And I guess the last thing before we move off this, and Sal can get into what he wants to get into, is I just thought that he stressed unity. I heard that the ACLU was upset because he mentioned America 80 times. Yeah, they were mad about ridiculous. That. He mentioned working together, cooperation. Isn't that what you guys wanted? That's what you said you did, but you didn't clap for that, and you still shit on him. And then the last thing I want to bring up, and I really don't want to talk about this asshole very much, but I just thought their attempt at bringing this dope Joe Kennedy on for a rebuttal was horrific. The guy was horrible. I mean, let's be honest. He had no charisma. He did not take control of that room. And believe me, they planted college kids in there who I bet you they probably bought lunch or dinner.
This is President Kennedy's respect them.
Yeah, and
what?
And he attempted to speak Spanish because he was trying to. It was just a really pathetic. If that's the best the DNC can come up with, they are screwed. That guy was awful.
I feel bad for him too because of that. The cosmetic thing that was going on with him made him look like a fool even more.
Yeah,
I'm not going to get into that. I'm not going to get into looks and bashing like that. But that did not help, dude.
No, he looked nervous as shit.
The drooler.
Yeah, he looked nervous as shit.
He said it was chapstick.
Yeah, it was not chapstick.
It was bad, is what it was.
It was horrible.
It was bad.
It was horrible. But on my end, that's as far as the whole State of the Union. And if I don't know if there's anything you want to add to that.
Hell of a breakdown.
It was a phenomenal speech. Phenomenal.
Beautiful. I loved it. Dems hated it. We loved it, and we knew it was going to happen.
It got rated very highly, though.
Yeah, it was. Yeah,
by everybody.
Everybody, because they know what he's saying is the truth. They can only argue the words that he uses. They can't say that he's wrong. Why did you say this when you could have said it like this? And why did you do that when you could have said it like this? Well, he's Trump. He can do whatever the fuck he wants.
The last thing I want to mention, and I don't know if you saw this, Sal, but people, I recommend highly that you just YouTube this, because if you want to see some of the most pathetic behavior of adults I've ever seen in my life, listen, I'm going to put it this way. If you saw this behavior in children and you're a parent, you probably would smack your kid or grab him by the collar and get him out of the room. Unfortunately, it wasn't children, it was adults. In Orange County, California, there was a inaugural get-together to watch the State of the Union. grown-ass adults vowed beforehand to wear flip-flops and sandals. There was quite a few people there. They threw them at the screen and they laughed hysterically. So people, these are adults 25 and over throwing their flip-flops at the screen when they saw Donald Trump's face, and they laughed hysterically. Like what they were doing was so creative and so it made a difference. It was some of the most bizarre and ridiculous behavior of an adult I've ever seen in my life. It was, I can't even get into an adjective to describe how sad, how pathetic, awful. But
that's being a liberal.
Exactly.
So that's pathetic and awful. That's your whole life. Do you know about the Pareto distribution? Do you know what that is?
No.
Pareto distribution. The Pareto distribution is 1% of people, 1% of companies, 1% of anything creates 80% of everything.
Okay.
And it goes for all.
In sales, it's a 20-80 rule, but so yeah, I get it. Again.
So it's like 1% of people own 80% of everything in this
Well,
country.
whatever,
1% of people do 80% of work in a company.
Correct.
And all that. And I feel like a lot of people don't know this. Like a lot of people don't.
I didn't know it was called the Pareto.
It's a Pareto distribution.
Okay.
This guy Pareto.
Yeah.
He studied it back in early 1900s, and he saw it in every facet of life, not just one. And he's like, this is what it's like. So I feel like people. I just wanted to throw it out there so people know, like, there is no social equality. There is no social equality. People are better and people are worse. And
right.
That's just the way it is. We can't be equal.
No, it's impossible. Listen.
Made equally, yes.
Right.
Socially equal, never.
Well, think about a sport. How is it in any sport you take? I don't care what sport you're in. I don't want to go to each individual, but any sport you take, why do they have the games? Because they declare a winner. Why do you have a playoff system? Because a group of teams are better than another group of teams. And then why do you have a World Series or a Super Bowl or a National Hockey League final or an NBA championship?
Who's the best?
Who's the best? And that starts out from 28, 30, whatever the case may be. So that's the way life is. People compete.
Yes.
That's what you do. People, even if you don't know it, you compete every day. Sometimes you compete against yourself, yes. But other times if you're in a corporation or a sales organization, or you sell real estate, or you're a lawyer. If you're a lawyer, what do? If you're a prosecutor, you compete against the DA. That's what you do.
You're always in a hierarchical competition.
Correct.
Always.
Correct. Always. And I'm not saying you're this in every situation. When you're with friends having a drink, no, you're not competing.
Pretty much in every business situation.
But yeah, not every social situation, obviously, but
that's different.
That's different. But every situation of life that requires you have a winner, or I'm not saying you have to have a loser, but you have someone who gets on top for some reason.
Someone gets the best of something.
Correct.
Somebody else.
And it always it's not stagnant.
Just the better end of something. Yeah.
Correct. And that's it. So the way they don't want to face this is it's not real world. It's fantasy land. They're never going to be equality for anything. Never.
I lose my mind every time.
Never.
Guys, if you haven't noticed, this whole podcast, you got Jordan Peterson's book, The 12 Rules for Life, An Antidote to Chaos. This book is, everyone needs to read this book. It's life-changing. It'll make you think of social, psychological situations in ways that you've never, in ways that you know, in ways that you've definitely thought of, but put it in the words that you've never been able to express. It's really mind-altering. And just saying that and knowing this, that say you influence 1,000 people over your lifetime. Me and Gary, it's a little different. We influence a couple thousand people every week. But just say if normal people, whatever, you influence 1,000 people, and then they go ahead and influence 1,000 people from your influence. That's a million people, right?
Correct.
So just think about your words have meaning and power. So no, don't stay silent with this shit.
Right.
Go out there and let people know that this is wrong and this is the right way. It'll really make a difference in this world. I really, truly believe that.
Well, it's funny. To Sal's point, there used to be a commercial that people may think didn't mean much, but I thought about it a lot, even when I was a little kid. It always stuck in my brain. I don't know if you guys remember it, and I don't remember the exact shampoo, but what the commercial used to do was, and it's kind of exactly what Sal said, but the commercial to me was so effective that here I am, 45 years later, I still remember it, that it would say something like, this shampoo is so good, tell a friend. And then after that, it would say, and so on, and so on. And so you went from one person to two, then they doubled. And by the end, you had and they went to cubes. You had a screen full of just, like from one person went to like 256 people in 10 seconds. It just would go boop, 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 and it would just continuously split and double.
That's how quick.
And that's what Jordan Peterson talks about, Dr. Peterson. And he has a lot of other good points. And I didn't read the book yet. Sal,
yeah, I'm almost halfway done.
And as soon as he's done, I'm going to get it. But we've talked about him before in our podcast, how when he's on, he has his own podcast as well. But when you hear him talk about how he's a Harvard professor, he's a conservative, but how brilliant the man is. He's a brilliant man.
He breaks down social, psychological situations, I'm telling you guys, in ways that you've thought of, that you've never been able to express. And it makes you think of them now from the past, and it really helps you overcome, say, if it was a bad situation. Really in your mind, it's like, oh, well, that'll never happen again because I know now.
Yeah.
Things that were bugging you, things that you're like, why is it like this? He actually can explain it pretty well.
Right.
It's pretty awesome.
It's funny because I was kind of humbled when the elections were going on. I decided, and it wasn't because I sat here and made a conscious decision to do it. It just happened where at the time, probably 60 or 90 days before the election, I literally was coming on every day and doing like between sometimes 3 or 4 minutes, but the longest like 8-9 minutes, doing a podcast every day. And when it was all said and done, and we all know Trump won, obviously, people came, like I was getting private messages, not from one person, but I think when it was all said and done, I never counted, but it might have been almost like 50 people that said to me, I changed my vote from watching your podcast. And then someone would say to me, hey, listen, I showed your podcast to a group of my friends, and after what you would say, they were watching, they decided that what you were talking about Hillary, that they couldn't vote for her, and they voted for Trump. And I'm not saying I got Trump elected. I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is, to what Sal mentioned, is that you do have influence on people. And so
it goes a lot farther than you think.
Well,
it really does.
And I think now I got to give credit to Sal. He's the one who named the Red podcast.
Reasonable, Enlightened, Deplorable.
Exactly. And that's what I always tried to be, even before Sal mentioned that was going to be our name. I always try to be, I don't try to attack people. I never do unless I'm attacked first.
Exactly.
If I'm baited or, someone's going to come at me. And even when they do, I laugh it off and I don't ever get mad. I know some of you may think I get mad. I never get mad. I don't give a shit what someone calls me. But I like coming back at somebody and making it look foolish.
It's like arguing,
yeah. So, but that's something, being reasonable, knowing our information, that's the point where it makes us different. And that's what we always try to stress. Sal and I never talk about something that we haven't double, triple, sometimes quadruple checked. Matter of fact, sometimes we've heard stuff that was great that we talked about. I'll say to Sal, hey, did we check this out? We didn't have time. And we might have found out about it like our podcast went on 7, we might have found it like 6:15. No, we didn't check it out. We won't until next. But the stuff like with Pizzagate, we check that shit out. That's all legit.
Yeah, we'd say, and even the stuff that isn't legit about it, we say we don't know. We don't know about this, but it makes sense that it would be.
Correct. Correct.
I got the guys. I don't know if you know about the show Glee or the actor Mark Salling, whatever his name is, but he apparently killed himself, air quotes,
in the woods or something, right?
Well, he got found in like a river or the ocean or something.
Right.
Or the hell, what bodies of water out there?
Right.
They said it was suicide. But what I didn't know is that this guy he took a plea deal of either 4 to 7 years on child pedophilia.
Yep.
So it just raises another eyebrow, another weird Hollywood death of one of these guys who was into pedophilia.
Mm-hmm.
It just, skeptical hippo eyes go up whenever I see that stuff.
Yeah, there's a lot of them.
We saw it with the 2 musicians we've talked about, Chester Bennington and the guy from Soundgarden, Chris Cornell. So I won't rehash any of that, but it's just, to me, it's fishy. It's always these semi-famous or famous people just killing themselves.
Right.
Right before either they're involved in pedophilia organizations trying to stop it, they were child pedophiled, whatever you want to call it, or they're about to go to jail. So it's just like, there's a weird, eerie connection behind all of it.
I may be wrong here, but I could have swore they stated the cause of death was he hung himself from a tree.
Then how the hell did he get found in a river?
Right. And I think
he was floating down a body of water.
Why? maybe I'm wrong too, and I never committed suicide. Never thought about it.
Obviously,
but if I did, why would I walk with a rope to a wooded area and hang myself from a tree? Why wouldn't I do it in my home?
Yeah. Fuck, you trying to make
you lived alone.
You're martyring yourself and making a public display of yourself?
Right. It's just bizarre. It's just completely bizarre. And so you're right. I always have a question when this happens. And now I want to kind of segue, and this has nothing to do with pedophilia, but I want to kind of segue. Now, I'll be the first to admit to everyone, I did not watch 1 second of the Grammys. I haven't watched the Grammys in
no one can watch
probably 20 years.
Man,
I just know.
garbage.
But the thing that always, and I just heard from other people, but I don't want to get too much into it because I didn't watch it, so I'm talking from a place I don't know. But I want to just use Hollywood and entertainment in a general, overall umbrella statement that, first off, it was the lowest rated Grammys in the history of them being performed on major news networks or major networks. When, just like we talked about, liberalism is mental disease. When is Hollywood, the entertainment industry, ever going to learn? They are just dying on the vine. They can't get anybody to watch them anymore. And I want to know, when did it occur? Like, where's the time frame? Was it 2 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years? When do entertainers think that the American public actually gives a shit what they think? I don't.
No, it's so dumb. Like, I was listening to old podcasts of like in the early 2000s, and they were saying the same shit then. They're like, what makes these people who act like these people really think that they are those people?
Right.
And like, what makes them think that we care?
Right. Like it's funny. I'm the kind of opposite. Like, when I see an entertainer, promoting a product,
Ugh.
I won't buy it.
Ugh.
And I'm like, what do I give a shit if, let's use somebody like
Anyway,
it's mostly a lot more women actresses promote goods than men, I would think. But let's say, for example, some guy who's an actor that we may be famous, or say George Clooney. If George Clooney does a deodorant commercial for Right Guard, or an underwear like Fruit of the Loom underwear,
yeah.
I wouldn't buy that underwear on purpose.
Yeah, exactly. I do the same stuff when I see it.
Why do advertising agencies or media outlets think that because George Clooney wore that underwear, that I'm going to go run and buy it?
Well, I'm sorry. To your point, this is the last thing I have tonight. I'm not ending with no tech stuff or anything. The numbers came out for Starbucks this year. They only had 2% increase in growth, and that was not due to bringing in new customers. They actually brought in no new customers. It was only due to increasing their own prices.
Yeah, and we know how high they are. They're ridiculous.
So for a company that big, a stagnant year is a loss, a huge loss. So
I mean, when I was in the airport a few weeks ago, I needed a cup of coffee.
Our influence. Like,
right.
We boycott that shit.
Well, they're getting killed.
That's why Toys R Us is bankrupt. That's why all these places are losing business.
And real quick, I mean, I was in the airport. I know things are more expensive in the airport, but I had to get a cup of coffee. They were the only game in town in the airport.
They're like $8.
I was like $7 for a latte or something. But here's another thing. I'm not going to talk about the NFL anymore. But not for nothing, people. I'm not watching the Super Bowl this year. I give a shit. I haven't watched football in 2 years. But let me ask you a question. Has it been the quietest Super Bowl
week ever? Yeah, no one's talking about it.
I haven't heard one thing about anything. I don't know nothing. And usually you run into this shit from time to time somewhere. I haven't heard one thing about it. No stories, no nothing. It's amazing. I don't even think anyone gives a shit.
That guy, I don't want to talk about it really, but that stupid kid, Chris Long on the Eagles, every time he speaks, he inserts his foot right.
Yeah, he's a complete moron.
He's a complete dope. And that's why I think a lot of press got killed because of him.
Well, you would think Howie Long, who I thought was
he just doesn't care about his kids.
Right. You would think he would smack, because both of them are idiots. Both his sons are idiots. And you would think he would just smack, but
he was too worried about Firestarter.
Right. Yeah. Maybe I didn't know that Howie's somewhere along the line from the 70s to today, he became a liberal. I don't know. He wasn't back in the day, but maybe he's one now. Because obviously his kids are morons.
His hard assness went in straight to being a pussy ass.
Exactly, he got pussified and his kids are like, supposedly these big macho dudes are a bunch of whiny little bitches. But the only other thing I want to mention is something I want you to keep an eye on, because I think it's important. Yeah, and I'm interested to see what's going to happen and transpire between the FISA memo that Trump has his hands on. Is he going to release it? Is he not going to release it? And it was interesting because they sent letters out to a lot of people, and these letters were kind of not veiled threats, but they sent them on the DNC side. They sent them to John Podesta, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, Donna Brazil, this guy Joel Benenson, and then to the FBI and DOJ, they sent to Rod Rosenstein, Chris Wray, and they all are saying that this guy Christopher Steele from Fusion GPS lied to the Senate Judiciary Committee as well as these guys. So now you have basically they have these guys on the hook for some crimes, and now we're going to see how they're going to react to them. And they've already, I mean, what's his name?
Are you going to rat or are you going to go take your time? What's going to happen?
Andrew McCabe already stepped down.
Obama made me do it.
And that's going to be funny because we're going to see what happens with that. And then you know we just basically get into other crimes that the DNC had committed. So from all this, we're going to see where we're going to go with all this stuff. And this next week coming up. Now here's another caveat. I was going to get your opinion on this. Do you think there's a possibility that Trump may be playing human chess with these people and saying, "Hey, listen, I won't release the memo if you agree to this or this group of things," or will he just say, "Screw you, it's going to be," and we're bringing the hammer down on all of you?
I think it depends. We have to wait and see.
We have to wait and see,
but it could go either way. That most definitely could be right. So that what you said.
I personally want to see people go down. I do, and
if he gets like welfare reform,
maybe,
and a couple of other things through it,
might be for the common good.
It might be for the common good,
right? Could be. Also, there's another, thought I had is where has been. He's probably in hiding, but the Muslims have been rather quiet. Barack Obama has been incredibly quiet.
Yeah, for about a couple weeks.
Yeah. I mean, I think he probably
because he got backlash from his stupid library that no one wants now.
Well, I also think his name is behind all this. He knew about all this stuff. He knew about it.
I make that joke.
Yeah,
Barry made me do it.
Yeah, he knew all about it. So that's another interesting thing. But the DOJ, FBI, they proved that the upper echelon are completely corrupt.
If Obama's smart, which I do think he is a little bit smart, I'm surprised he didn't get out in front of it and blame it all on Hillary right now. That's what he should do.
Well, I think he's talking to lawyers, and I think they're going to probably tell him someone's got to be a scapegoat. It could be you. So you're giving her up, and that will happen. Oh yeah, you can tell he's a rat
for suicide.
Yeah, he's a rat bastard. You know what's funny?
She's going to catch a case of suicide.
Well, here's what I feel. Here's what I feel.
It's a cool prediction.
Here's what I feel. I disagree with my wife.
I don't think so either.
Hillary is a stone. We talked about her. She's a stone cold killer. She's a gangster.
Whitey Bulger.
Barack cannot play games with Hillary Clinton. He doesn't have the capability,
you got to take her
skill.
Out quick.
She will kill him first. If it comes down to it, let's think back to the Wild West. Remember back in the Wild West, they used to have that draw. You walk 20 paces, turn around. Let me tell you something. Hillary's so smart.
She's a sniper.
That or know what's funny? She'll say to Obama, "Let's walk 20 paces and shoot." Guess what she'll do? On the 5th pace, she turns around and blows his head up. And Obama, as he's ready to die, says, "Wait, this wasn't fair." Oh, and he goes out and she walks away laughing. She will have that guy. She'll wipe the face of the earth with him. He is nowhere near diabolical like Hillary Clinton.
Well, let's make a wage because I say suicide.
Hey, listen, we'll see. I don't think so.
What do you guys think? What do you think? Hillary's going down in the next few months or Barry? Let us know your thoughts.
All right, here's my thing. If one of them have the choice, Hillary is not going down. She will. If she has the opportunity, he will go down first. That is, she's been proven. Listen, how many people on Barack Obama's hit list have died? Maybe 3 or 4 that we even know about. How many on Hillary's? About 150.
Stone cold gangsta.
Hillary Clinton is Jeffrey Dahmer, Charles Manson,
she's
the Zodiac Killer,
the dude from Waco.
She's all of them combined. All of them combined. She's more ruthless than Pablo Escobar.
Yeah,
who's pretty ruthless.
Oh yeah.
But with that, we'll keep an eye on that, and a lot of interesting stuff will be coming up. So
let's hope these Dems get an antidote for their anti-American behavior.
Yeah, so we're going to see about that. But it was a great speech. So we're going on about an hour. Sal and I haven't eaten, so we're starving.
Yeah,
we're going to go grab some grub, We got a good Sicilian pie coming, so I'm going to grab Sicilian pie. We got some Breaking the Law by Judas Priest, the Mighty Priest coming out. So my boy Sal, Gary Gabagool out. Love to hear you guys. We're going to see from you next week, and looking forward to it, guys. Have a good night.
Have a nice night, guys. Peace.